Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson contained in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 343. My reward for being was this, period. Did you notice this? Not a dash, not a colon. In other words, we're going to have to ask what is the antecedent to the pronoun this. And notice being is capitalized. So we're going to maybe have some observations about ontology as part of this discussion. Here we have another poem about poetry. And our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. And if you have, then you've already been exposed to our set of introductory comments where we talked about in 303, our discussions always around texts involve the big five. Epistemology, what can you know? Ontology, who are you? Who are we? Psychology, the study of the individual mind. Sociology, the study of the collective or group mind. And then finally, the question of theodicy. Why must there be pain and suffering in the world? Here, she's going to begin with an ontological observation. That is to say, there is a reward for being. And it was this. Obviously, the question is, what's the antecedent of the pronoun this? Here, we're going to see Emily in her strong belief that her artistic power will somehow outlive her life. As well, the politics of poetry, as some have called it, is all that in the end matters. The election that really matters is not political, but rather poetic. Poets love this poem for obvious reasons, as artists all love it as well. Notice the repetition of the word my at the beginning of the poem. My reward for being was this. My premium, my bliss. An admiralty, less. A scepter, penniless. And realms, just dross. When thrones accost my hands with me, miss me, I'll unroll thee, dominions dowerless. Beside this grace, election, vote, the ballots of eternity will show just that. Her ability to create a phrase, the ballots of eternity, I mean, it's an amazing idea. Now, there's huge debate, as we've already said, about why Emily wouldn't seriously try and publish these amazing poems. One answer, of course, is that she doubted whether she had the right voice for the time. And of course, as we've said, this is my letter to the world that never wrote to me, judge tenderly of me. Here we will see a certain kind of optimism. We've seen this already in a number of other poems, where Emily is pretty certain that in the end, eternity will be hers. I think it makes sense for us to just pause for a moment and say, she was right. A poem like this is right. This is her reward. Of course, go back to it. My reward for being was this. I think the antecedent is clear. It is her poetic prowess. It is the inspiration of the muse that produced these amazing poems. She'll call it a premium, and she'll call it bliss, taking us back to, of course, poem 340. You'll remember that we said in that lecture that in 39 poems she mentions this word bliss, right? The fact that Emily has been given what one scholar has called the grace of poetic artistry, I think that's a good way to say it. She says, I would turn down everything. An admiralty, a scepter, to be a king, penniless, realms, dross, thrones, not interested. In other words, she's making the argument that I could care less about all the stuff that normal people care about, i.e. that kind of power. I'm far more interested in the artistic power that would produce so much. She says, if the thrones were to say, me, miss me, she says, in the moment of temptation, and standing behind this might be that story of Christ being tempted by the devil to, you remember, gain the power and that kind of thing. She says, I'll unroll thee, that is to say, the antecedent to this, that is to say, a poem like this, dominions dowerless. So notice we go from less to penniless to dross to dowerless. Besides this grace, and again the antecedent to the pronoun this, the grace, the insight, the poetic inspiration. And then if there was an election, go ahead and vote. But she says the ballots of eternity, that's back to the reward. will show that in fact I was right all along. Just that. Notice it's not this, it's that. I love how she does this, from this to that. What is she saying at 2a? I think her argument is that art, true art, will outlast the political power of kings and admiralties and the like. At 2b, I love the word choices. Notice, this poem is really in the end about her and me, and of course grace. That is to say, the gift, right? At 3a, there's so many places we could obviously relate this poem, but I think Keats's Ode on a Grecian Urn is probably one of the best. We've given full lectures on that text at learnstrong.net. But the power of art that in the end teases us out of eternity at cold pastoral, you'll remember that Keats says there. Finally, at 3b, this is an interesting question. To what degree do you think of bliss and reward, and what will yours be? What grace will it be? I'm hopeful Emily's challenging you. Thank you.